Joe Burrow might not have his offensive line here, fellas.
Put on his wrong offensive line.
Jonah Williams and Alex Kappa did not practice Wednesday, so something to keep an eye on there. The Bills are favored by 5.5 in this game. They are at home. Of course, the over-under point total is set at 48.5. So let's get into the rosters here. And we'll start with you, Barry, looking at the better stack here. Of course, Josh Allen and his old friend Stephon Diggs, or Joe Burrow with or without an offensive line with Jamar Chase.
I think I'd prefer Burrow and Chase just because cheaper, right? You know, Burrow's at 6,500 versus Josh Allen at 7,800. You know, Josh Allen looked sloppy last week against the Dolphins, and now he's got a tougher matchup against a Bengals defense that's pretty good. Cincinnati gave up the third fewest fantasy points and third fewest receptions per game to opposing wide receivers this season. Diggs is going to be obviously a focal point of that defensive effort. I feel better about Jamar Chase than I do about Stephon Diggs, as weird as that sounds. I mean, they're both awesome, but just with Chase, he's had 11 targets in 5 straight games, right? He's had 80 receiving yards and a receiving touchdowns in back-to-back games. Diggs is 7,700, Chase is 7,800, so they're basically a wash. So I feel better about Chase, and I'd rather save the 1,000 on Burrow versus Allen. So if you're asking me those two stacks, I prefer Burrow and Chase. I get the offensive line issues as well, but they'll get him in the shotgun. Burrow's fairly mobile. And that's the other thing about Chase is that, weirdly, Chase has become the possession receiver. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying he's a Danny Amendola or anything like that, but weirdly, like, his reception, he's gotten a ton of receptions. Yeah. If you've been watching these Bengals, like, when he gets it out quickly, he's obviously looking for Jamar Chase early and often.
Yep. I think Chase just has a higher floor because there's games where Diggs just disappears and he's just unsighted, whereas Chase, I think it's impossible for that to happen just because of the sheer target volume.
And I think to piggyback off that, Jay, looking at the number 2 wide receivers in that game, you can't just dedicate all that attention to Chase and forget about T. Higgins, who's priced at $5,800 in this game. Gabe Davis significantly less at $4,800. Taking the pricing into value, though, are you still rolling with Higgins?
I still am rolling with Higgins just because the Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. And the good thing about Joe Burrow having decimated... they're 5.5-point underdogs, so they will be throwing. And so the good thing about Joe Burrow not having an offensive line is that he's used to it. He's got experience not having an offensive line. He's had one all of last season. So I think that the passing game will be fine enough for Higgins to provide value.
Yeah. Certainly, big game Gabe, or as Tony Romo likes to call him, big game Davis.
He also kept calling the Bills the champs. Did you catch that? I really was...
Champs of the AFC East?
Yeah. Because that's the only thing they champs of.
Got that $19 million. There's a little Hainsworth thing going on.
Say he just mailed it in.
Exactly. I got my $19 million a year. I got my $19 million for 10 years or whatever it is. Like $18 million a year for 10 years. Like I'm gonna.
I like how you compared it to Albert Hainsworth, though.
No, there's been no greater example of signing a big deal and then completely phoning it in than Albert Hainsworth with my Washington professional football team. Like I said this is an old joke on my whole podcast when I signed my last deal with ESPN and people were joking about that. I'm like, oh, I'm total Hainsworthing it now. And that's what I've done here at NBC. God bless. 3 more years, Peacock. 3 more years.
You somehow
after this one.
Not many can pull off the double Hainsworth.
The double Hainsworth.
Yeah, it's rarely seen, but you have executed it.
I really have. It's super impressive. Anyway, but Davis becomes interesting again. Like, he does have there's clear talent there. We do expect scoring to be happening, and because of the attention that Stephon Diggs gets. And by the way, Isaiah McKenzie missed last week. He's banged up. I don't know if he'll be able to make it. So then you've got like Cole Beasley, who had a bad drop, and then you got Shakir, the rookie, who also had they didn't call it a drop, but it was a bad drop, right? I do think Josh Allen will look for Gabe Davis a decent amount. 2 of the last 3 games that he's had in his last 3 playoff games, he's had at least 8 targets and 100 receiving yards. So Gabe Davis at 4,800 is a pretty interesting tournament play.
Lawrence, despite Joe Mixon going under 40 rushing yards in 3 of his last 4, not much of a discount here at 6,500 for Mixon. Do you trust the Cincinnati run game at all?
Yeah, no, it's going to be tough, especially when we just talked about the offensive line and Jay mentioned, Joe Burrow's used to having this line. Well, he's used to having that offensive line and still being able to throw the ball. It'll be tough for them to run against the Buffalo Bills defense, who didn't give up much of anything in the running game. against the Dolphins in the wild card run, but they were still, the defense was still vulnerable through the pass game. So I think that's how the Bengals will make their money here in this game. He's getting the touches, 20-plus touches in 4 of the last 5 games, but it's not accumulated to no yards.
Jay, any value plays in this game? Hayden Hurst, Dawson Knox, obviously tight ends that do see some production. And then you have Tyler Boyd, who has not done a ton traditionally in the playoffs throughout his career, but obviously their pricing will come in with a bargain chip.
Yeah, I think Dawson Knox will be the play here just because he's scored in 5 straight and's got that upside. So Dawson Knox is the best bargain basement guy.
All right, guys, let's move over to Dallas, San Francisco. This line has moved. San Francisco is now favored by 4 points at home against the Cowboys. The over-under is set at 46, which, call me crazy, feels a little low in this game. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But Christian McCaffrey and Debo coming in here. McCaffrey priced at $8,000. Debo priced at $5,900. Barry, do you think that's low for Debo, being under $6,000?
Yeah, I mean, double-digit touches in 3 of the last 4 games. He scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. His last 4 playoff games, he's averaged 19.9 fantasy points per game. Oh, by the way, he's really good. Like, I mean, just a little bit. Throwing a bunch of stats out. He's really good. He's clearly going to be a focal point for Kyle Shanahan. Again, one of the things, look, the Dallas defense showed up. Give props where props are due. The Dallas defense showed up in a big way against Tampa Bay. But if there's a couple of criticisms that you can sort of lob at them, and one of them is that they take chances. They over pursue sometimes. They are very aggressive on defense, which sometimes works out for them, but sometimes doesn't. And when you're over aggressive and you miss against Deebo Samuel, he makes you pay. And so that feels really. That feels at $5,900. That feels like one of those things where they have an algorithm, and just based on his recent stats, because he was injured and he missed some time. But that feels like a real opportunity there on Deebo Samuel.
Yep, I agree. And the whole thing is that if you can block Micah Parsons, then the Dallas defense just isn't that good because the secondary is super banged up. Has been banged up all year. Yep. You can get a lot of yards after the catch against Dallas, and I think that Trent Williams and those guys, they can probably block Micah Parsons, so I think they'll be able to score.
George Kittle's a really good blocker. No one never talks about that because of everything else that goes along with his game, but George Kittle's a very good blocker.
Something's got to give, definitely.
Yeah. Jay, one of the more interesting parts of this game from a daily fantasy perspective is the quarterbacks. Brock Purdy valued at just $5,400. Dak Prescott not much higher at $6,100. And you look here, obviously Purdy and Dak coming off a massive game. Both of these guys found the end zone easily in the wild card round. Are you rolling with Purdy's value or the more typically reliable nature of Dak?
I think Dak, just because Dak is probably more projectable, more consistent. I prefer both of these guys at their values to either of the guys in the other NFC matchup in Hurts or Jones. I think Dak, what he showed against Tampa Bay, he's fine. I think you throw out the weird Washington game, he looked like the guy that we expected and wanted to see in the playoffs. Purdy, though, is interesting because, look, I don't think Brock Purdy's that good, and I don't think it even matters because of Shanahan and the skill position guys. So $5,400, that seems too low for Purdy with all those weapons against the Dallas pass defense, which I think still is exploitable if you can stop Parsons.
By the way, I will say just your point about Dak Prescott, 49ers run defense is really, really good.
Yes.
And so you're fighting against Mike McCarthy's tendencies, but right. Or Jerry Jones calling down saying, hey, keep running Zeke into the middle. But the fact of the matter is, over the last 6 weeks, dating back into the regular season, the 49ers defense is 30th against the pass. You can throw against the Niners. That secondary has also taken on some chances. So in a game in which where we expect them to have to throw because that's how they're going to move the ball, Dak Prescott becomes kind of interesting here, especially with friend of the podcast, my personal friend, Eights. I call him Eights, CeeDee Lamb.
All right, let's get into Sunday's best bets here. Jay, what do you like in both of these games?
Yeah, so in these two games, like Jamar Chase, over 82.5 receiving yards, averaging almost 13 targets a game over his past 5. We saw against Baltimore that he doesn't need the deep ball. He didn't have a single reception for 20 or more yards and still got insane volume with the shorter, more intermediate stuff. And also the Bills secondary is a lot more susceptible than it has been in years past. Brock Purdy to throw an interception. The yes is -115. He's been great at avoiding turnover-worthy plays. At the same time, this Dallas defense is going to be the best that he plays. I think that Dallas will be able to stop the run, more than other defenses playing San Francisco have recently. He's going to need to throw. It's going to be tighter windows. He still is prone to the occasional moment of madness, so I think he will throw at least one interception. But then I also think his longest pass completion will be over 37.5 yards. I do think this Dallas defense is susceptible to the big play. So what Gardner Minshew did against them, just lighting them up with big plays. I think that Parsons and Lawrence will be able to get blocked. And look, the 38-yard pass play, it might be a 5-yard pass through the air, but Debo and McCaffrey can take it 38 yards, so I think he will go over.
Barry, anything you're tailing on there, or anything you got in your own?
Yeah,
in this game?
I definitely like the Jamar Chase over. I like that quite a bit. But you know what I love in that Cincinnati Buffalo Bills game? What I absolutely love.
Kicker prop.
Tyler Bass, over 1.5 field goals. It's minus 105. Like, again, I think those are two pretty good defenses. I think they tighten up in the red zone as well. Evan McPherson, Money Mac, is also at plus money for over 1.5. I feel better about Bass than McPherson. But I think both, I like the over on both. 1.5 made field goals for each one of those guys in that game.
Is Brett Maher going to be set at like plus 500?
Poor guy.
That's a fair question. There might be some value there.
Tyler Bass over 1.5 field goals. That's
all
fine.
Right.
You laugh at the kicker props, but you know what? They cash just the same as your Brock Purdy interception ones, brother. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.